Behind me is the British Consulate. We're very fortunate to have lined up an exclusive interview with the British Ambassador Giles Paxman. But who is he and what does he do? Let's go and find out. Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us. We're in the consulate here in Alicante. How often do you get down to this part of the country?
As often as I can. Sadly, my last attempt to come down was abortive due to my flight being cancelled. I try to come down as often as I can because this is the part of Spain where we have the greatest concentration of British residents. We also have a lot of British tourists here, but we have a lot of residents, and it's important for me to keep in touch with the sorts of problems that they have, to be able to talk to the consulate team here, and generally to be able to have a good relationship with the authorities. And this time, one of the main focuses of my visit is to make contact with the new authorities who were elected in last May, to make sure that we got the right lines out with them and that we're working closely with them.
Yeah. You're down here for 2 days?
I'm here in Alicante today and I'm going to Murcia tomorrow.
Right, and you've got to pack in a lot in those 2 days, I would think.
I'm afraid I always pack a lot into a day, so it's normal for me.
Yeah. But your whole patch, being the ambassador here in Spain, you literally cover the whole of Spain?
I cover the whole of Spain, and actually Andorra as well. I'm also accredited to Andorra.
Gee whiz.
Yeah.
When you were studying in Oxford, did you realise this was the path you were going to take?
No, surprisingly enough, when I left Oxford and I was trying to work out what to do, first of all, my careers service suggested that I should become a policeman. I think that was probably because I'm over 6 foot and I couldn't think of anything else to do. And then when I actually applied to join the civil service, and I was asked if I wanted to join the foreign service because I'd studied languages and lived abroad, I actually said no thank you, I'd rather go and work for the Ministry of the Environment, and I was interested in environmental problems and still am. And I did actually go and join the Ministry of the Environment and work with them for a few years before I then went to Brussels and transferred to the Foreign Office from there.
You were at the Ministry for the Environment right at the beginning, I believe?
I was, when it was set up in 1974, yes.
So exciting times then?
It was very exciting, and it was a great project. It proved in the end to be an unmanageable project. The idea was that they were going to put everything that had anything to do with the environment into one huge ministry. Yeah. So it went from protecting the environment, properly speaking, to local government finance, to public works, to sport, to all sorts of other things. And in the end, it proved rather unmanageable for one ministry, but it was great fun while I was there.
And you attended a very prestigious graduate school in Paris. Jacques Chirac, I think, was there as well.
And many other French politicians.
Yes. How on earth did you manage to go there?
Well, I was sent there. I was sent there by my parent department at the time, which was the Department of the Environment, and it was an absolutely fascinating experience because it is the top administrative school in France. Absolutely. It's where they train all their senior civil servants, who then some of them go into politics, some of them go into business. But as a way of finding out how the French civil service works and actually how French government works, it was absolutely fascinating, and it's proved really useful for me later on in my career, not least through the network of contacts I made there.
Yeah. Prior to Spain, you were ambassador in Mexico City.
I was ambassador for 4 years in Mexico.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very different to this posting?
Yes, very different. Very different. Mexico, an emerging country, a lot of interest in emerging economies, a country that these are the countries where the future growth is going to come from in the global economy. Yeah. Mexico is a wonderfully varied and colourful country, huge variety, huge biodiversity, every type of environment you can think of, from desert to tropical rainforest to oceans and of course wonderful culture. Yeah. Where everyone's heard about the Aztecs and the Mayas, but they haven't heard about the Zapotecs and the Mixtecs and the Toltecs and the Olmecs and all the rest of it. And putting all of that together and working out how the country's developed over the years of pre-Columbian civilization, and then of course the Spanish colonization, and then they've had just about every type of government since then. It's absolutely fantastic.
After just 2 weeks, I believe, you were down in Cancun helping the British nationals get over the Hurricane Wilma.
It was less than 2 weeks. It was actually my first week in the office. And I remember very vividly on the Monday morning when I got into the embassy and the Consul General came into my office and said, "Boss, we've got a problem." And it turned out to be the biggest hurricane that had ever hit Mexico, a Category 5, a really big one, and it was heading straight for Cancun, and it did indeed hit Cancun head on and stayed there for 36 hours, causing a lot of damage, a lot of rainfall. And I had to take a team down there straight away, I think on my 3rd or 4th day in the office, to see what we could do to help the 9,000 or 10,000 British tourists who are stranded there.
If you were writing a job description of being a British ambassador abroad somewhere, what would it read? What are the sort of qualities you have to have?
I think first of all you've got to be flexible. You've got to be able to turn your mind to all sorts of different things. The job that I have here involves politics, it involves economics, it involves promoting British trade, it involves attracting investment to Britain and therefore creating jobs in Britain. All of the consular side, which are the services that we provide to British citizens. We have a defence section, defence collaboration with the Spaniards, and so on and so forth. It's a hugely varied job, and you've got to be able to turn your mind to those different sorts of tasks and to do it in a wide range of different countries. And I think that's really where the second quality comes in. You've got to be able to make contact with people. You've got to be able to arrive in a country knowing no one and make the contacts, build up the networks that you need in order to, first of all, get the information that you need to do your job, but secondly, and perhaps more importantly, actually to influence what goes on in that country, because it's my job to represent the British government here and to tell the Spanish government, the Spanish authorities, whether at central or local level, what we think about particular problems and how we think they can help us. And I've got to get them into a sort of mindset in which they actually want to help us. So you do need those interpersonal skills as well.
I know we're very short of time, but just want to ask you about the honour of having a royal visit over here recently. How much preparation goes into something like that?
A phenomenal amount of preparation goes into that.
How long before did you know they were coming?
Well, we have been working on it for quite some time. There's a long schedule of royal visits that are sometimes arranged 2 or 3 years or finalised 2 or 3 years in advance. I should say that the detailed preparation for the visit by the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall really started about 6 months, a little over 6 months beforehand. We'd been doing a lot in terms of thinking about programmes, what they might do, how we could use their visit here to promote British objectives in Spain, but the really detailed preparation of tying down all the individual events, who the partners were going to be, how the events were going to work. I think that probably started about 6 months beforehand, and it was very intensive from then on.
They didn't make it to the Costa Blanca?
They didn't make it to the Costa Blanca this time. There were a huge number of requests for them to travel all around the country. We thought very, very carefully. In the end, we only had 3 days. They had to do the authorities and a lot of events in Madrid, and in the end we ended up going to Seville as well. Maybe next time.
Next time, yes. Or possibly the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge.
Possibly the Duke of Duchess of Cambridge. That would be fun, wouldn't it?
That would be fantastic, and they would have to come to the Costa Blanca. If you could just arrange that, we would appreciate it.
Well, I think they're very much in demand at the moment.
Yeah, just a little bit. I was going to do this interview and try not to mention your older brother. Jeremy Paxman, which took me by surprise. When I was doing my research, I had no idea, but looking at you, you can see the family resemblance. Have you ever been interviewed by him? I
have been interviewed by him, actually, live on Newsnight, and it was actually on the occasion of that hurricane that I was talking about earlier on. And I remember very vividly sitting down there in Cancun on the end of a mobile phone and hearing Jeremy say, "And now over to the ambassador in Mexico, who just happens to be my brother."
Oh, he said it. Yeah. Does it frustrate you, because everything I read about you starts with Jeremy Paxman's younger brother, Giles? You are in this senior position, you've done so much in your life, he's just a mere presenter at the end of the day. Does that frustrate you a little bit?
No, not at all. We both have our separate careers. It's actually surprising how little we prey off each other. Jeremy has never asked me an indiscreet question, which may come as a surprise to some of the people that he interviews, but he's never asked me an indiscreet question because he knows that I wouldn't be able to answer. And equally, I've never really sought his support as a journalist. And obviously, I have a lot to do with journalists in my job. So no, I'd say we support each other, and it doesn't bother me in the slightest that he takes the limelight.
Yeah. Does he come to Spain much?
He does come from time to time. Yes, yes, he comes. He comes reasonably frequently, but quietly.
Well, if he ever needs a job, he's going to retire one day. You know, we could.
On Viva Television.
Absolutely, yes. Get him down here. Just tell him to send his CV in. On a serious note, I just want your opinion on the challenges that might be facing expats that live here in Spain over the next year or so. What do you see the challenges being?
I think that expats living in Spain face two main types of challenge. The first one, for many of them, is an economic and financial challenge, particularly for those who've been living on fixed incomes from the UK. As the pound went down against the euro, happily now it's going up a bit against the euro, but as the pound went down, I think a lot of those people found themselves in quite a difficult situation, and that coupled with the fact that none of us are getting any younger,
Sure.
And therefore getting sorts of problems where we do need sometimes a little bit of financial help. I think that has been a problem for lots of people, and I'm very conscious of that. The second, I think, big problem that people have is in some ways a problem of isolation, a problem of not being integrated into the local community. And it sounds fine when you come out here. Spain is a country where you can have a good life, you can live well, there's plenty of sunshine, often they've got British friends or no British people who've been out here. But if you get a problem, and if you need to deal with the local authorities, you do need to know how to do that. And that's why I think it's particularly important that people who come out here to live should make a real effort to integrate as much as possible as they can into local life. It means trying to learn Spanish. I know it's not easy. No. I've had to learn several languages in my career, and I know that the older you get, the more difficult it becomes. But nevertheless, it is worth making an effort, because you get so much more out of life if you can communicate with people in the country in which you live in their own language. But it also means getting yourself onto the padron. It means having a relationship with the local authorities. It means getting your residencia, and it means getting yourself into a position where, as you get older, and as perhaps the likelihood of having need for social services gets greater, that you are actually able to work out how you can access those services and make them work for you.
On the plus side, still a good country to live in?
Spain, absolutely, yes. I mean, it is a great country to live in. You only have to travel around the country to the wealth of history, of culture that this country has, and all the delights of its gastronomy and its music and its cinema. And yes, it's a wonderful country to live in.
So you'll be here for a while?
I shall be here for as long as I possibly can.
Yes. Are you told where to go?
No, we're not told where to go. Now we have a fairly open market for jobs in the diplomatic service. You have to apply for jobs. You know generally more or less when the jobs are coming up, particularly the overseas jobs, because they have to be planned in advance. There's often training to be done, there's a language to be learnt, and those sorts of things. So you can spot jobs coming that you might be interested quite a long way out, but you then have to bid for them.
Oh, right.
And you have to present a sort of manifesto of what you would do in that job. You have to say why you're the right person for that job. You will have to go through an interview process, and then if you're very lucky, you get selected. But
this is considered one of the top jobs.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, and there usually is a knighthood at the end of it.
Well, I'm afraid knighthoods are becoming much fewer and far between these days, so I'm not pinning my hopes on that.
But it would be a nice end to a distinguished career.
If I were offered a knighthood, I certainly wouldn't turn it down, but I think that's increasingly unlikely.
You've been to lots of different countries as well. How does that impact on the family, mixing family life with the job?
I think in a way it's tough on a family. The family, just like the diplomatic officer, the family has to be flexible as well. My children have studied in schools in, I think, 6 or 7 different countries. Sure. They've had to change school many different times. That's quite, and I often think it's actually the strain on the spouse, in my case my wife, is actually greater than it is for me as the officer, because I arrive in a country, day one I'm into the office, I've got a job to go to, I've got a fairly structured life to live, and okay, you have a lot of trouble having to make the friends, make the contacts. Yeah. But for the wife it can be a lot more difficult, because they arrive, I go off to work the first day and they're stuck at home. What do I do in a country where I know nobody? And it demands an awful lot of resilience for the family, for the wife, for the children. The advantages, of course, are huge if you can make it work for you. My children speak goodness knows how many different languages. They have a network of contacts throughout the world. They are very open. They're used to dealing with foreigners, used to dealing with different situations. They've travelled, and all the advantages that travel brings. So the advantages are definitely there, yeah. But you do have to work at it. And
any of your, I think you've got 3 girls, haven't you?
I have 3 girls.
Are they following in father's footsteps at all?
No, I think they've all, having travelled quite a lot in their youth, I think they're now happy with a slightly more stable existence.
Yeah. Just going back to your brother just for a moment, he took part in the programme Who Do You Think You Are?
He did.
Which must have been great for you as well, to trace your family tree.
Well, we learnt an awful lot through that programme, about our background, and we learnt some very interesting facts, and some actually quite tragic facts about some of our ancestors. It was fascinating.
Yeah. What do you see next in your career? Would you finish your sort of time here in Spain, or is there somewhere else you've got your eye on?
I haven't decided yet. I've got at least another couple of years to go in Spain, so we'll see what the challenges are then. Those challenges could be within the diplomatic service, or they could be outside the diplomatic service. In a way, having done 2 ambassadorial jobs, I'm quite keen to look at doing something else, but we'll see.
All right. Ambassador, it's been a delight meeting you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.